So, Brian, good to be talking with you today. You've got quite an interesting background. You mentioned you started way back in TV advertising, and as I understand, which then went to stage hypnosis and hypnotism. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right. Well, okay. I started off after leaving art college as a freelancer, working for some of the big ad agencies in Edinburgh. And basically, what I would do is I would go in and I'd visualize, create visuals for TV adverts. And back in the old days, used to do it with magic marker pens. There was no computers, so I would draw all the storyboards for the TV. And so I got really used to working on big presentations for big pitches, and that's where I got my start. And I worked with some of the best art directors and some of the best copywriters during that period. And then after that, after about 8 years, I went and became a professional hypnotist. It's something that I'd always been interested in. Going way back to school, I used to hypnotize my schoolmates really badly from books that I used to buy. So it's been a lifelong interest. And so I became a successful stage hypnotist in the 90s. And at the peak, I was performing in front of audiences of 1,000 or more. And
Wow.
the big thing that really got me away back then when I first started doing the stage hypnosis was the fact that if you take a group of people through a simple process and you structure your language in a specific way, you can have a profound impact upon their perceptions. You can make them see things that are not there. You can make them not be able to see things that are there. You can take away all their inhibitions and get them behaving in ways they wouldn't normally do. But the big thing that really got me back then was that the vast majority of people who got on stage for a full 2 hours couldn't remember a single thing. They had complete amnesia for the whole experience. And so that kind of amazed me. But as time went on and I left the stage hypnosis, I started to notice that the same patterns happen every single day in our daily interactions with everybody around us. And that the rituals that we go through affect our perception and what we're able to see and how we're able to perform. And also how we sequence and the words that we choose also have a profound impact upon the people around us, which is crucial in business. And so that's how I started to transition away from the stage hypnosis into working with businesses.
Understood. So I'm kind of curious as well. You've obviously worked with quite a few individuals and initially in groups, and then I understand you work with it more on an individual basis. What in your experience, what would you say is one of the biggest things that either stops or is a barrier to an individual achieving their goal? What really stops them?
Right. Well, the biggest thing really to understand is that everything that we do unconsciously. We don't actually have much of a conscious mind. We only think we do. In fact, it's something I've always kind of known by being a hypnotist, but now neuroscience tells us it's something like only 6% represents the conscious mind, right?
Right.
So for example, if I was to pick up a mug of coffee and put it to my lips and take a sip, you might think that's a conscious decision, but it involves something like 120 muscles or so. And you couldn't coordinate all these muscles consciously. So we've got unconscious programs that do it for us, right? And also, where does the notion of thirst come from? Well, that's not a conscious decision either. That comes from somewhere else. So just about everything that we do is it's unconscious. And so if you think about other tasks like running down a flight of stairs, you might think, if you think about the bio competitions needed to safely move your body mass down these stairs, it's phenomenal. We couldn't do it consciously. So again, we've got these unconscious programs that make us do it without thinking. Now, if I was to actually ask you to think about every step as you run down a flight of stairs, what would happen is you would trip up on the third or fourth step and fall all the way to the bottom. And that's what basically people are doing. That's the first thing. They're consciously trying to make things happen instead of going with the flow. And when they do that, they get in the way of their unconscious programs. That's the only way they can get there. The second thing is, we also have these unconscious set points, and these unconscious set points are where we are programmed to achieve at any level and at any in the current moment. And no matter how hard you try, you can't go above these set points. And so these set points exist in every area of our lives, our relationships, our health, our finances, our business. If you play a sport, the results you get in a sport. If you want to see where your set points are set at the moment, just look at how much money you've got in the bank. Look at the quality of your relationships. Look at how your business is doing. Look at who you attract into your business as team members. And that will tell you where your unconscious set points are set. And that's the main thing that stops people moving forwards, is they don't understand that it's the unconscious set points that's holding them up, and they don't know how to raise them. So what they do instead is they go and do more training. They'll do more sales training, more business training. They may do some more marketing, but all they really do is they just get better at staying where they are within the channel, because a set point has a top part and a bottom part. And if you think about anything that you've done in your life in the past, you'll realize that you don't go up all the time and you don't go down, you go up and down within the set point. So what people really need to move forward is a system that raises the set points.
So on that point, Brian, what's one of the main ways of raising a set point for an individual?
Right. Well, if you think about your own, I mean, another way you could think of it, it's like a comfort zone, if you like. That's a simpler way of thinking about it. And if you think about anything that you've done in the past where you've had to progress to a higher level, you've had to break through your comfort zone. And usually what happens is when you come to your comfort zone, you basically hit this wall, and what happens is you go through a bit of self-doubt, anxiety, overwhelm. And so what you have to do is you have to push through this overwhelm. And that's what goal setting is really about, right? You set a goal, you focus on the goal, and the whole idea is that you'll be able to push through these set points and get there. So that's how it's normally done. But the way I actually do it when I work with people is we create what we call unconscious blueprints. And what an unconscious blueprint is, you basically sit down and you get really, really, really clear on what it is that you want in detail, and you write it all down, right? And you write it down in a systematic way, and you take time out every single day to focus on that and visualize it and feel it. And if you do that long enough, then what will happen is your set points will just gradually raise.
Ah, okay. That sounds kind of a lot what I call softer or holistic. Yeah, one of the ways, as you were explaining that, one of the most one of the things I did years back, which was way out of my comfort zone, was become a private pilot. So I was going through months of training, obviously in an airplane, initially with instructor, trainer, and then eventually solo as well. So a lot of it was outside a comfort zone. But it was basically through training and repetition that I became better and competent and stayed alive by flying the plane and so on. So how does this kind of differ? Because what you're talking about is much more of an internal process. In reality, surely it's a bit of both. So internal and then practicing externally, right?
Right. Well, the thing is, we do actually live in two worlds. We live in an internal world and we live in an external world, right? And the idea is that everything that you're experiencing right now is a reflection of what's going on inside you, right? So the first step, in order to sort of change the exterior world, the first step is to change your internal world. So, for example, if you've ever wondered why it is, you can get two people. It could be sports people, it could be business people. And on paper, they seem exactly the same or very similar. They have the same backgrounds, they have the same resources, they have access to the same education. But when you put them in a competitive environment, one will excel and the other one will flounder. And yet everything you can see and touch and measure is the same. So if everything that you can see and touch and measure is the same, the answer has to be the difference that makes the real difference is invisible. It's what's going on inside them. So the first step is to change what's going on inside you. And then you can then move forward to develop the physical skills.
Good point. Do you have a brief example of this, Brian, like a before and after example where where the individual was, maybe a couple of problems or challenges they faced, and then the process
Well,
too.
I mean, I do quite a lot I do a lot of work with business people, and I do a lot of work with salespeople, and I have worked with teams in the past as well, but we can talk about that in a minute. But basically what I've found, right, I work on two levels, right? First of all, I work on the mindset, and then I work on the skill set. So what we do with the mindset is we basically release any fear or any anxiety, because if you're in sales, you'll know that's a kiss of death. If you walk into any appointment with any sort of anxiety, it gets transmitted to the person you're trying to sell to. And basically, people only buy because it feels right. They feel what you feel. So if you're feeling anxiety, they feel anxious, so they don't buy from you. So the first thing what we do is release all the anxiety and release all the fear, right? The second thing, just doing that alone just by releasing all the anxiety and the fear and raising the set points based on that, without teaching a salesperson anymore. I've seen salespeople go out and double and even treble their sales. The second part, what I teach, is the skill set. So I teach them how to use language in a specific way so that it has a much more emotional impact. And one example would be a client who came to me once quite a few years ago, and he was in a really bad place because he was worried that he was about to lose his home, and he was worried that this was affecting his relationships and he would actually lose his wife and his kids. That's how serious it was. And what had actually happened was he had left a company to set up on his own, and all of a sudden, all these phone calls and all these meetings became really, really important, to the point that it basically it crippled him with anxiety. And so what would happen is he would sit in his desk all day staring at the phone, fighting to pick it up and speak to people who could actually make a difference in his business. And so when he came to me with for what I do is a one-day breakthrough session, we released all the anxiety and all the fear, and we do a process which I call programming the future. So it's a bit like goal setting, but we install all these images into your mind so they happen automatically. So what happened after that, the next again day, he got on the phone and he started talking to a guy who he was terrified about talking to, and he started to onboard them as a client. And then within the next 2 or 3 weeks, he did it with another 3 or 4 clients, and each client was worth about £40,000 to £50,000 to him, and he was in recruitment. And so that's an example of the kind of quick changes you can make with the kind of programs that I run.
Brilliant, brilliant. As you say, it starts with that inner change, making a shift in the inner world mindset,
yeah.
and then leading to the external. So the interesting point here, well, one of the things that just came to mind here is a lot of what you do is intangible, like kind of invisible. So how do you get an individual to understand that? So I mean, if they're either not aware
Right.
of,
Okay. Well, like I
oh,
said, we're still talking about the breakthroughs, but we do a lot more as well. But the breakthrough is a powerful thing, right?
yeah,
When somebody comes to me, right, they come to me and sometimes they've been in counselling, sometimes they've been on medication, they maybe been to see other types of therapists, right? But the first thing I get them to do is they start to tell me about their problem. And if it's an emotional problem, which it almost always is when they come for a breakthrough, if it's anxiety or depression or a combination, I ask them, how do you know that you have this problem, right? And so they tell me they can feel it right now. And so I ask them basically, where are you now on the scale? 1 being absolutely no stress whatsoever, to being absolutely anxious or absolutely depressed. Could you give me an idea where you are right now? And most people will tell you right away they're on a 5 or a 6 or a 7. So it's quite high, right?
yeah.
And so the next thing I do is I actually ask them to make it worse. So I get them to take it up to 8. So they're feeling this going up inside and they can make it worse.
Yeah.
So then what I'm able to say to them is, it's brilliant, you can control the feelings, but the bad news is you can only make them worse at the moment, right? And so what I say to them is, we'll know that the breakthrough's a success because at the end of it, you won't be able to get this stuff back at all. And then the next step is, what I'll do is ask them how long they've had the problem. And quite often they've had it for 15, 20, 30 years. They've had it for a long time, right? And so I ask them what was happening the first time you started to experience this. And then I get them to go back into their mind and remember these memories that happened a long time ago. And when they go back into the memories and think about it, the actual emotions are still attached to the memories in the past. They've never been processed. And then I get them to go even further back to the first time. And usually they can tell me about incidents that happened at school where they were bullied or they were embarrassed by a teacher. And when they go back to these memories that are maybe 30, 40 years old, the emotions are still raw. They've never been processed. They've never been released. And so what they're experiencing now, when there's an external trigger where they feel overwhelmed with maybe depression or anxiety, what they're experiencing isn't a reaction to what's happening now in the present. It's what they're experiencing is all these negative emotions going all the way back to that first event. And that's why it's overwhelming. And the other thing that people don't understand about emotions is emotions are like lenses, right? You see the world through the lens of emotion, right? So if you're anxious or you're depressed and you're looking through these lenses, the world looks like a fearful, sad place. And so if that's what you're seeing, you won't be able to see any opportunities. And that's the basic difference between, say, an entrepreneur who sees opportunities everywhere and an entrepreneur who only sees obstacles. It's because he's looking through a different set of lenses.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
So when we release these emotions, the lenses are released, and you actually start to see possibilities everywhere. And when you see them, you start to go for them automatically. Your unconscious mind goes for them because now you can see them.
Fascinating. Just as a final point, Brian, it'd be good to get your input on this. So, some of the individuals I work with are like coaches and consultants. So they're often in well, one of the challenges they face, from my understanding, is they're often in broadcast or authority mode. So they're often communicating, whether talking one-to-one, or whether they're putting out content or on calls or video or whatever. So my experience is that they very rarely listen. They listen a lot less, and often they're repelling or putting off potential clients. So from your experience, what's your kind of input on that? What shift or change could those
Right.
kind of coaches make?
Well, the first shift you should really make whenever you're trying to sell consulting services to anybody, or sell anything really, but especially consulting services, is that nobody gives a shit about you and your products or your services. Nobody, right?
Yeah.
And the sad thing is every consultant is in love with their services and they want to tell people about them. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the client to understand what they offer, right? But people don't buy under these circumstances. People buy because they feel understood. It's the other way around, right? And so what you need to do is you need to learn how to talk to your client in such a way that they open up, reconnect them with their highest dreams and everything they want. And then what you do is you align your products and services with what their highest hopes and dreams are. And if you do that, basically what will happen is you eliminate all the competition, because now you become a key part of them getting their dreams. And then you align that with your products and services. And
Right.
that's different. That's different than what you'll hear as well. Well, a lot of the traditional salespeople, they'll tell you to find the pain and stick the knife in and twist it around. You can do that, but it's far better to become a part of their vision and where they want to go. And the other thing is, when you reconnect somebody with their higher vision, it may be the first time in their life that they've actually found somebody that's done that for them. And they'll have such an overwhelming feeling of being understood, and also a feeling that things are going to work out. And that's what you are selling. You're not selling your product or service. You're selling the solution that's going to enable them to get to that place, that deep emotional core that motivates them and gets them out of their bed in the morning.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes much more sense than just broadcasting information and content. So for those who want to find out a bit more about you, do they get you see you on LinkedIn or elsewhere, Brian?
Well, at the moment, since the lockdowns, I've been working online, and I've worked with people from all over the world through Zoom. So if you want to work with me, the first thing to do is send me a DM, and any breakthrough sessions we can do on Zoom. But I also have ongoing programs. I've had clients that I know I've been working with for 18 months, and I have a program called Indestructible. And the whole idea about Indestructible is that if you've got some really huge goals that you want to create over the next 12 months, instead of trying to consciously think about every step and running all the way down, what I will do first of all is we'll remove any fear, any self-doubt. We'll put down a roadmap, and we'll put down all these milestones. And when you hit a milestone, what we'll do is we will keep taking away any self-doubt, any anxiety, and I'll also teach you any of the skills that you actually need in regards to being able to persuade people, or being able to make shifts and changes inside, and I'll guide you through that process. So that's the indestructible process.
Brilliant. Well, good to talk with you today, Brian.
Yeah, that was good to talk to you as always.
Excellent. Cheers, Brian.
Okay, thanks. Speak to you soon, Des.
Bye.